السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Welcome, dear brothers and sisters, to another lecture on the life coaching topic. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of you, to bless your families, to bless your worship, to accept everything that you've been doing this Ramadan. I have to start by talking about the fact that we reached half of Ramadan. Half of Ramadan is gone. So whatever is left is less than what's already gone. However, value-wise, we still have the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So many of us start off Ramadan really strong. You have a lot of energy, you have a lot of power, you're excited, and then it kind of starts kind of going down from there. But let's pick it up, right? Let's pick it up, whatever that may be for you. Maybe let's pick up with some Quran, pick up with some Salah, with some Sadaqah. Maybe you can start joining more halaqat, whatever it may be. Let's pick up, because at the end of the day, every single one of us want to make the most out of the last 10 nights, right? The last 10 nights where Laylatul Qadr falls, that is better than 1,000 months. It's something that we all look forward to, and it's something that we all need to strive to try to catch, inshallah ta'ala. So if you're out there and you're listening and you feel like, this is, you're feeling a little bit down, just, pick yourself back up. And actually, some of what we're going to talk about today, inshallah ta'ala, I hope and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala it will be helpful, to kind of help us, raise the bar a little bit. As always, if you're joining us from YouTube or Facebook, I like if you can share, right? If you can share the link, or maybe tag a friend or a family, so inshallah more people can benefit. And bring a pen and paper, right? Please do bring a pen and paper with you, or maybe you can use your phone also if you would like, and we can, you can just kind of write down some of the notes that we're talking about today, inshallah ta'ala. So what I want to talk about today is something I read. There's a book by a doctor called Maharani, who writes about, this concept of how do we make the most out of our lives, right? And how in that process you discover your talents, your skills, you discover the things that you're good at, you discover your own areas of improvement, the things that you need to change about your life. And she brings up this really interesting concept of the difference between being alive, just being alive, and enjoying your life, or making the most out of your life. So you see, she talks about how, we're all alive, alhamdulillah. We're, our hearts are bumping, we're breathing, but not every single person who's alive is making the most out of the life, right? And from that angle, she starts bringing some really interesting things about how you need to move or change from being just alive, just being there, to actually becoming a very crucial part of this world, making an impact, like showing up, right? Having a dot of your name, of your personality on the map of this world. Essentially, what she's talking about is how do you make the most out of this life? And subhanallah, I cannot, before we go on, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that she kind of highlights and changing that mentality, because all that she's talking about is in your head. You know what I mean? Everything that she encourages people to do is a mentality change. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I talked about this before, wants us to make the most out of this world, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to enjoy this world. The Prophet ﷺ, he says that Allah made me love certain foods. The Prophet ﷺ used to love to be with women. The Prophet ﷺ used to love enjoying his company and his companions, right? He used to have time with the children. There's so much in this life that we can make the most out of it. Essentially, what the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want us to do is to make the most out of our lives. And that's inshallah what we're going to talk about based on some of her notes, inshallah ta'ala. The first, she starts off by saying that um, when you are alive, you know that your heart is pumping, right? That's what everybody knows. But she says when you are indulged in the proper way, the positive way, the good way, the the sunnah way, in the blessing of life, your heart is happy. Your heart finds positivity and optimism. But you also, when you have negative emotions, you're living your emotions, right? And essentially what she's saying is, let your heart be there. And subhanallah, I was digging in the Quran, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us to be happy. But be happy with what exactly? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا وَخَيْرٌ مِّمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. Say, O Muhammad, tell your people, your ummah, which includes us, okay, by the grace and the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fadlullah here is al-Islam. And and we gotta pause here for a second, because Islam isn't just the religion that you grew up in because your parents were Muslims so became Muslim. No, Islam, brothers and sisters, gives us meaning. It gives us purpose. And the one thing that everybody's looking for is purpose, is meaning, is what is the point of this world? Why am I here? Yani, may Allah protect all of you and your families and your loved ones. If you look at a lot of people who commit suicide, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't find a purpose. They don't find a reason to be alive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's telling us that I gave you a reason, right? Which is be connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, connecting to a higher power, connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and making sure the heart has a destination to go to, which is Jannah. That clarity is the greatest blessing in this world. So what she's saying essentially is your heart needs to revive that blessing all day long. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ. So by the bounty of Allah and His mercy here is actually referring to the Quran, because this is your manual. This is how you're going to live this life. And again, for those who have been following and have been watching these series, I'm not just talking about it from a religious, ritualistic perspective. I'm talking about beyond that. I'm talking about the dealing with anything that you do in life, in business, in school, in your relationships, and with your friends, when you're about to have fun and get married. Like, Islam is not just in the masjid. Islam is not just when you're about to pray. It's in every aspect of your life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ, by the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is Islam, and His mercy, which is the Quran. Islam is why you're alive. The Quran is how you're going to live a lot. You're going to be alive. These two things. فَبِذَلِكَ, and for that, فَلْيَفْرَحُوا, let them be happy. Let them enjoy. Let them rejoice. Right? Let their heart be excited and be happy. هُوَ خَيْرٌ مِّمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. It is better than anything else that they might accumulate, or they might collect, or they might gather in this world. Because the reality is, brothers and sisters, we all gather stuff. We gather money, we gather experiences, we gather things, hoping that it will bring us happiness. What she's saying is, if you're just alive, you collect materialistic things. If you want to enjoy your life, you got to connect it to your heart. And this heart has to be connecting to its greater purpose, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's number one. Number two, she says, if you are alive, okay, if you're just alive, just like everybody else, you know that you have certain skills and certain good attributes, good characters. You know that you're good at some things. That's what everybody knows. Everybody knows that they're good at certain things. But when you're really enjoying life and you're making the most out of life, and you're fulfilling that purpose and taking advantage of the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you take advantage of these skills to help someone else, to be there for someone else, to improve some of these skills, to try to dig deeper to figure out what are some of the skills that you have, what are some of the things that you need to change. It becomes your treasure, right? It becomes who you are when you find out your own good characteristics and good skills. And subhanallah, the Prophet ﷺ used to do this with the companions, right? He used to tell this companion, "You're good at this," and that companion, "You're good at that." He used to bring their skills up as a way to tell them, take advantage of your skills. Don't just know that you're good at something. Take advantage of it. Act on that something, right? And if you realize that there are certain things you need to change, you go ahead and you change them. And it's very important because that process is what life is all about. That process of improvement, that process of figuring out who you are is what life is all about. And there's a story in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ by a man of a name Ashad Abdul Qais. This man came with his tribe to the Prophet ﷺ after accepting Islam. So his tribe was very excited to meet the Prophet ﷺ. But there are protocols. Right? Even back then, there is a way to meet the Prophet ﷺ. You can't just show up. So his people were very, very excited. So as soon as they arrived in Medina, they ran to the Prophet ﷺ. They purged into his house and they started kissing his hands and they started hugging him and whatnot. Al-Ashaj stayed behind. He didn't go with them. Now the Prophet ﷺ, he knows that this man is the leader of his tribe. So he was like, where is he? So what Al-Ajjaj did, which is again, is just to tell you about how he approaches life and how the Prophet ﷺ used to raise the companions. He went to a place, his house, or a place where he's gonna stay. He changed, right? He tied the camel that he had or the ride that he had. He changed his clothes. Maybe he showered. He prepared himself, and then he went to the Prophet ﷺ, right? He didn't just purge in. He went to the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ, he says, when the Prophet ﷺ saw him, yani the narration says, فَأَكْرَمَهُ النَّبِيُّ. The Prophet honored him, وَقَرَّبَهُ, right? And then he brought him closer. Right? And obviously everybody else is like, why is this guy waiting behind? Like, why didn't he just come with us? The Prophet ﷺ, when he asked him, he says, why were you late? He says, Ya Rasulullah, I was, I wanted to get ready. I wanted to tie my camel, put my stuff away, take a shower, change my clothes because I've been traveling for days, and I wanted to meet you prepared. The Prophet ﷺ looks at him and he says, أنت فيك خصلتان يحبهم الله. You have two characteristics that Allah loves. And this was the Prophet ﷺ telling Ashaj, take care of these two characteristics. You have good things, take advantage of them, right? Don't just know that you're good at something, go and do something with it, right? Al-hilmu wal-ina. You persevere, right? You have a sense of calmness to you, and al-ina is that you're not always in a rush, right? You take your time, you take it easy. And the Prophet says these are two things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. The point I'm bringing this story up, brothers and sisters, is that when we know something good about ourselves, we have to be able to take advantage of it, right? And benefit from it and figure out what am I good at? A lot of us, man, we just do things. We don't spend time to think about what am I good at? Why do I just want to be a doctor? Just because my parents want me a doctor? I know a lot of parents don't like me when I say this, but the reality is we have to help our kids figure out their own skills. You know what I mean? MashaAllah, being a doctor is great. And if you want to be a doctor and you listen to this, yani Allah bless you. I have nothing against doctors, right? The idea here is, do you know what you're good at? Part of what we're talking about, part of being with a life coach, right, in general, is that this life coach tells you, here's what you're good at. And now it becomes your part to know what to do with it, right? You want to be a doctor, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a teacher, you want to be an athlete, you want to be the next, the greatest football player, whatever it may be, but know your skills. And this is part of your enjoying your life. Number three is, and this is really interesting. Dr. Mahashi says that when you're alive spiritually, okay, you just pray, right? You just pray. You pray and you fast, just like you do your rituals. But when you enjoy life, when you take life to the next level, when you make the most out of your life and out of the potential of your life, your entire day becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that you do becomes, it connects to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The way you treat your family, your parents, your children, the way you treat your spouse and your siblings, it becomes about Allah subhanahu. Every word you say becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the jokes. And the Prophet ﷺ, he warns people from joking by making fun of other people. Because now your Islam, your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just on the praying rug. It's not just in the masjid. It's not just when you're praying Taraweeh. It's all day long. And it's not just in Ramadan. It's your entire life. There are people who fulfill the ritual acts, right? Which is great. Allah bless them and accepts from them. But for you to make the most out of your life, out of the spiritual life that you have, is you have to make your entire existence about connecting you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you love for Allah, right? When you are angry, you're only angry for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not angry for your own self. And this was the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you hate for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you never hate something that Allah loves, right? When you're sad for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're patient for Allah. When you're grateful for, like, every part of your existence, every emotion, every action. When you walk and when you talk, when you speak, when you interact, everything becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's all connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how you make the most of life. And that's why Ibrahim alayhi salam, what did Allah tell us about Ibrahim? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي. This is Allah telling Ibrahim alayhi salam, say, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he says, my prayers. And nusuki here could mean sacrifices, but it could mean any ritualistic acts, like holistically. Okay. وَمَحْيَايَ, and my entire life. وَمَمَاتِي, and my death. From the time I come out of my mother all the way to the time I my grave, this entire existence, this entire part of my life, لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything I do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now your spiritual life, which we talked about, that as part of your life, there's a spiritual aspect that feeds into your heart, into your soul, becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And it's enhanced and it's improved and it's much better, and your entire life becomes about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next point that she mentions is, and this is really interesting, she says a lot of us make mistakes. And when we make mistakes, we were like, okay, I have shortcomings, I make mistakes, I move on. She says this is a person who's just alive. You guys get the, I hope you're all following, right? Her differentiation of, you can just be alive, or you can make the most out of your life. That you can enjoy every part of your life. So she's saying, if you live life and you make the most out of life and you enjoy life, it's about you knowing your shortcomings and knowing your failures, right? And flipping them to become a positive part so you can get better. So anything that happens, you fail a class, a relationship doesn't work out for you, you start a business that doesn't work out, whatever it may be, you take that, and instead of just accepting it as a failure, you flip it upside down, and you find, what do you learn from it? Now, you turn your sad moments to a moment of improvements, a moment of development, a moment where you can enhance your life. Subhanallah, one of the best examples I like to use here, and while it's not an Islamic example, I think a lot of us can relate to, Steve Jobs. Right? You guys heard me talk about Steve Jobs, even though I'm actually a Samsung owner. But I think Steve Jobs is a very incredible man. He was fired from his own company, and he used to work with Apple, right? Or I think it used to be called Macintosh, right? Long time ago, and it used to only be making computers. And he was one of the people that started it, right? He was one of the co-founders, and he gets fired. Now, if anybody in his place, like, hey man, I got fired. That's it. You move on with your life. It's not a big deal. But no, he actually came back to Apple years later, and he made it the iconic company that a lot of us know today, right? When you talk about phones, when you talk about tablets, when you talk about a lot of us today, most of our children are using iPhones. right? He took what a lot of people would consider a failure and flipped it upside down, right? And made the most out of it. It take a time, but that's what, when we're talking about making the most out of life, that's what we're really talking about here. Okay, don't let your failures stop you. Flip them upside down. There's a personal story, if I may share it. When I used to be in high school, like a while back. Okay, I used to work for Wendy's, right? And I loved Wendy's, and I was there for 4.5 years. I got promoted several times, and I was ready to give up college to be a Wendy's manager for the rest of my life, right? And subhanallah, I got fired. Right? After 4.5 years working in the same place, I got fired from it. And man, it was so devastating. Like, this sucks. This was like my life goal. And subhanallah, it was the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And I'm like, you know what? That's great. Then maybe I'm gonna do i'tikaf. I have nothing else going on. It's the summer. I don't have school, right? So I'm good. I'll take advantage of this time, and I'm gonna just do i'tikaf. And I did. And wallahi, brothers and sisters, from that point on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me with an internship after another internship after another internship. I ended up finishing college. I was ready to drop out of college to be a Wendy's guy for the rest of my life. But subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me through the fire, through the fact that I got fired. Perhaps if I never gotten fired, I would have just never finished college. I ended up going back to school, finished my college, and now alhamdulillah, like things just turned 180 degrees for me, right? I got a much better job, and it's amazing, alhamdulillah, how we have the ability to turn any negative or any sad moment in our life to flip it upside down and make the most out of it and make it positive. The last point, inshallah ta'ala, that I will go over um, is that in life, we have to deal with people around us. Okay? We have to deal with people around us. Now, in order for you to again make the most out of life, to make the most to live life to the fullest, which is again, this is, by the way, this is an Islamic concept. Yani when we talk about az-zuhd doesn't mean that you just sit home all day long and you ignore everybody around you. No, wasn't Imam Malik a zahid? He was probably more zahid than any of us combined. But Imam Malik, his students used to say that every time he will come teach, he will have a fresh new piece of clothes. Like, why would he do that? Because he knew what zuhd means, right? So when we're talking about making the most out of life, okay, it's not about you ignoring life and not getting married and not having a business. Uthman ibn Affan, wasn't he a zahid? Absolutely, right? But he was somebody who was extremely rich, right? And so many examples like that. There's so many examples in our history. Essentially, the Dr. Mah, the last point here I wanted to mention, she says that we all have to deal with people around us: family, community members, neighbors, people we work with, co-workers, students, classmates, whatever. We all have to deal with different people. Now, a person who makes the most out of life is somebody who leaves a positive relationship and leaves a positive mark in every single person he meets, right? Is that you learn how to connect with every single person, right? And I'm going to give you guys an advice at the end, inshallah, especially to this last point, is that being able to connect with people makes your relationships 100 times better. It's not just about you communicating. Everybody knows how to communicate, but not everybody knows how to connect, right? And subhanAllah, there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that encourages us, connecting with people. But before that, I wanna show you guys something really quick. One of the books that really impacted my life personally, and I highly, highly recommend if you like to read. I know you're quarantined. This is not like one of these boring books that you're gonna read. This will change your life, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so it's by a man called John Maxwell. Called the book is called "Everyone Communicates, Few Connect." We all talk to each other. We all communicate, but he says few people are able to connect with others, are able to make others feel that they are part of who they are. Connecting is very, very powerful. right? And that's exactly what Dr. Maha is saying. Even from a self-development perspective, when you connect with people, you leave a mark. You leave a mark in their life. They'll remember you. Everybody will remember how you make them feel, not just what you say. And that's what he means, and that's exactly what she means. And our Prophet ﷺ, who's the best of teachers, the best of teachers, right? Forget Don Maxwell, forget Dr. Maha. You go back to the Prophet ﷺ, and he puts all of this together in the simplest way. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ by Abdullah ibn Umar. And Abdullah ibn Umar, you have to know who Abdullah ibn Umar is for you to appreciate this hadith. He was somebody who used to be very kind of to himself, right? He used to just kind of, not, spend a lot of time in ibadah and seeking knowledge and whatnot. So you can say he was somebody that he was to himself, right? He was not like Umar ibn Khattab, his father. Umar ibn Khattab was talking to everybody. He's a leader, all that stuff. Abdullah ibn Umar was complete opposite, right? He's just gonna wants to be alone and not bother anybody and not deal with anyone. Look at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and how he used to advise him, right? Again, to tell him, make the most out of life, man. Like, don't just be by yourself. Get out there, leave a mark on people. And he did. Abdullah ibn Umar, he did. A lot of the hadith that we learned today was through Abdullah ibn Umar. The Prophet ﷺ, he tells him, المؤمن الذي يخالط الناس ويصبر على آذاهم أعظم أجرا من المؤمن الذي لا يخالط الناس ولا يصبر على آذاهم. Very famous hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, the believer who mixes with people, interacts with people, and talks with people, and he's patient with their harm. And this is so profound because when you are dealing with people are going to bother you, right? But your job becomes, I want to change their life, right? I want to put a mark on their life. I want to make them happy. I want to put a smile on their face. This is your job, right? It's not just communicating and talking, right? Or it's not just ignoring. It's greater than that. You're about what? You're about connecting. And that's why I definitely highly recommend you guys order this book and read it. Yani. It's about connecting. So the Prophet ﷺ says a believer who connects with people, right? He mixes with people, even though they might harm him. It's okay, right? People are not perfect. He is more rewarded. And in another narration, he says he's better, right? He is better in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the believer who just kind of stays away from people and is just there, right? So the point, and if you were to summarize everything today, brothers and sisters, is that we have the greatest blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called life. Let's make the most out of it. And when you continue to read the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you continue to read the Quran and you realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wants you to make the most out of life. So get out there, learn something, be with people, be an active member of the society. Don't just be to yourself, because Islam wants us to be a very active part of the society. Jazakumullah khairan. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit from what we said, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to learn that which benefits us. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.